everyone. Um, Thanks for joining us at Splice. It's great for me to be here, and today I'm going to take you through what I do and um, the ideas a bit behind the works. I'm originally Italian, and my background has been in fine arts, and then soon after that I started taking pictures when I bought my first DSLR, and I was just playing with like some software like for photo manipulation or graphic design like Illustrator, Photoshop. Was just playing around with different techniques. So until I was in Italy, I was mainly fixated with the stills, with photography especially. And until then, I moved to London. About 5 years ago, I got into moving image, so I started making videos and experimenting with visual effects, 2D and then 3D, and I did some VJing and played a bit with projection mapping. But it wasn't until I met Quayola where I got into real-time, interactive, generative works. So Quayola is a contemporary digital artist that uses many different tools for his works. And for example, here he collaborated with Memo Acten on the Olympics, on an Olympic project where he was tracking the athletes in real time and generating abstract forms, abstract 3D forms that keeps realism inside. So just to show you quickly what inspired me to get into this art scene. So I created this using a software called V4, which is a node-based software, and it's an analog to text programming, but it's rather visual analog. So you can create a sort of systems of boxes, basically connected boxes, one into each other, but they have different functions. So you create a sort of a procedural approach to your art, and it's very efficient compared to like standard software. So soon after, wait, I lost my notes. Why? Yeah, soon after that, oh my God, I love Windows. Soon after that, I joined the design studio field, which works at the intersection between art, technology, and design. And it was great. It was great experience for me to see how many different specialized people comes together in creating very super strong conceptually, but also technically strong pieces. And they work a lot in real time as well. They have a combination of programming skills like text-based, node-based software like the one before, or even more classical type of computer graphics using software like even Cinema 4D or Houdini, which is a visual effects software used pretty much in like all the Hollywood production to generate any type of simulation of like fire, water, smoke, or destructions, explosions. So meanwhile, I got into this sort of scenes, and I was doing my research. I produced my first hardcore video, which is called Malfunction. I worked on this for about 6 months, and I collaborated with one of my best friends, which is TSVI, a music producer, also based in London. And so this is it. I'm going to take you through some of the processes. I don't understand. video is a combination of techniques, and it consists of CGI using Cinema 4D to create 3D scenes about the planet. This is the landscape is created from photogrammetry. I created sets where I was scanning, taking pictures of like cabins or plastic bags and or aluminium foil to create this surface, like alien surface terrain. I've also filmed a lot of real-life footage of natural microscopic patterns. For example, a lot of places around. And I applied this sort of like texture on top, which looks analog. So it gives like an illusion of like some
danger
done like in the 90s. And these shapes are 3D fractals. And fractals have been an obsession for me in the past years, and you will see later on in like different projects. This was just the first one with fractals inside.
Integrating the in this slicing.
So the kind of like the flow of the video visually progresses as the sound progresses. So
danger
it builds up dynamically as it develops. Just move on.
danger
Integrating the DNA
This is actually when the virus infects this planet.
in this slicing.
charge beam malfunction
Integrating new DNA
missile
profile.
malfunction
Integrating new DNA
grapple beam malfunction
in this slicing.
charge beam malfunction
Integrating new DNA
missile
profile.
malfunction
Integrating new DNA.
grapple beam malfunction
And in the second part of the video,
charge beam
I am
malfunction
reconstructing the elements that I've created previously.
malfunction danger
So the virus is actually taking place. These fractal models that I've used previously, I've kind of used them to generate particles. So they're now a particle system that reacts to sound. And the microscopic footage is being converted also into particles using plugins, very different things that I found online.
danger
Sorry guys, I don't know why it does that. I'm just not gonna full screen it. And this is another experiment that I've done with fractals, and it is slightly more recent. And there's many different ways to work with fractals, and there's actually like specific softwares that you can find online, and most of them are free. And I'm gonna take you through the process, showing you one of the softwares out there. But this is another experiment that I've made a bit more recently. I'm not gonna full screen it, sorry. It's just messy. So to me, music is very important in my pieces, and it acts almost as the first input to then work around the video. So it lays down for me where I have to attack and like do certain types of cuts and make a sort of a dynamic flow that coexists between the video and the audio. And sorry about this. And another pieces that I worked on related to fractals, it's called Nature Abstraction, and it's an immersive installation that consists of two parts. One physical part, projection mapped cube that aims to be a sort of environment where you go inside and you actually experience a virtual reality work that I created about fractals. And this is what you see on the outside of the cube. On this projection mapped faces, there was a semi-transparent canvas, so you could see through the people like wearing the VR headset. And all these visuals are created in an analog manner in real life, so no digital tools are involved here, just a camera and a projector. And it consists of microscopic footage or macro photography even. There's a lot of physical, like physics properties of light, for example, diffraction, reflection, or refraction, or even glass. So that acts as a distortion. And yeah, you can see there's light flares, and these sort of things. And this pixel effect actually comes from the projector, so I was projecting onto surface and then with the camera zooming in very closely to get this pixelated effect. And I use actually a tool for the camera. It's called Magic Lantern, which kind of hacks the camera, so you have a lot more potential, and you can create even 4K footage or like HDR videos and this kind of stuff. So that helped a lot in terms of like getting a really high quality to do some post-production in the color to make it a bit more alien. But so all this analog footage goes well in contrast with what you see inside the virtual reality, which is a sequence of, it's a 360 video of like 3 different planets that conceptually starts, they're called birth communion and ether. And throughout the experience, these forms that you observe, they kind of liquefy, they loses their actual physical properties and become more part of a flow. And I created these intending to recreate a sort of meditative or mindful experience. I'm going full screen it though. And it basically, the journey takes you almost like floating through these shapes, which are infinitely complex. You know, you could zoom in potentially forever in there, and it is still related to my obsessions with them, as in all these shapes are recreated mathematically, and so they're simple formulas. It's one simple formula that it's iterated all over and over and over and over. And so it's always the one seed that creates these amazing, beautiful patterns. And to me, it was interesting how these patterns relates to what we see in the physical world. And this could, for example, it looks like some corals or like some more organic shapes, whereas the one before, it was looking more man-made or architectural, even like a microchip. The patterns that you just saw were coming from Deep Dream, which I used to process the fractal imagery once I rendered it out. And always in the relation between, natural abstract patterns against narrow network intelligence, artificial intelligence. But the features of both, they're similar. So I really like the boundary in between. So this is for example, I also did my thesis, my dissertation about fractals, and I was looking into the various fields in which they exist. And indeed, they don't just exist around us, but they exist within us and within our thought patterns, in fact. And they're literally embedded within our brain. In fact, many religious sects use them in their art, or even like indigenous cultures, especially in Africa, they created their structural, like their societies or village system based on fractals, even though they didn't know. We just came to know about fractals officially in the 90s, where thanks to the computational power of computer, we've been able to visualize them first 2D and then 3D. But to me, it's amazing to see all the relation between all these different various fields just through fractals. So this is one screenshot from the actual software I used to create these shapes. In fact, this is one of the planets rendering. The rendering time was really long. It took, I don't know, 1 month, like full stop, like non-stop, because it was 4K resolution, and it's a 6-minute length video, which then I had to bring into After Effects, split it up in 4 sections. Each frame split it up in 4 sections because Deep Dream couldn't process like such high-res images, so I had to split it down. And on that process in Deep Dream, the creative output that I have was slightly limited, in fact. But in fact, now I'm looking more into like some type of style transfer techniques where they use neural networks. So you feed them an image, and they stylize that image based on another image. So say the image reference is a painting from Van Gogh. The neural network will stylize your picture based on the Van Gogh painting. And so you can achieve like really interesting results. But yeah, this software is free and community is amazing. It's a really great tool. It's slightly unintuitive if you come from like standard 3D softwares, because it deals with formulas. So there's like weird names that you mix together. So you just have to get used to it. But then you have lighting, so that's pretty like 3D standard, and live viewport, so you can see whatever you're doing in real time, which is great because most of the times when you mix up the formulas, they come up like with just like showing up some grain or nothing, or like really ugly things. So yeah, then I put it into another software called Touch Designer, which is similar to V4, the software that Quayola uses. And it's all about real time, so you create your own system for whatever type of graphics you want to make that interacts with audio, with any type of sensor like Kinect or Leap Motion. You can do anything. This is in After Effects. And yeah, the immersiveness, you know. That was the reason why I decided to go VR. And yeah, this picture resembles it perfectly. And in fact, many people, I think, tends to get stuck with like specific tools they use in their workflow. But rather, to me, it's the ideas that always comes first, and then I develop. You know, I try to look for the best tools available to me online, and then try to cope with it and learn it. Yeah. Immersiveness is very important. In fact, for this project, Nature Abstraction, like the combination between the visual, the fractals, and the sound design was really strong, I believe. We designed the scores to induce a sort of sense of mindfulness or meditation based on like neuroscientific research, and just to see if the combination would work in a sort of gallery environment or installation environment. But it does somehow, I think. So that was my one part of my research that has been going on in the last years. Another side is related a lot to like recent issues in the world, especially related to the environment. As in, there's a recently new coined term named Anthropocene, and it states a new era where the ecosystem is permanently affected by humans, thus meaning that the Earth cannot recover itself anymore because the time it takes to recover it's not enough because we're trashing it all over. And also the amount of data that we consume online and the way in which we've been, like this illusion that we have of freedom, free choice, and privacy. We've been we're commodities to corporations, basically, where they're making profit out of our social relationships. And the chaos as well that lies within information, it was pretty strong. I felt it pretty strongly. So my other side of research is about these topics, and they're slightly more hectic. For example, this
Simulation.
I've been ripping off many videos online from YouTube, really, not really caring about copyrights or and it deals with mass production. It's always a collaboration with TSVI, my friend, and I've been processing the footage. I've been creating glitches, both analogically and digitally, using a mix of different software.
Simulation. Orientation. Immersions. Simulation. Orientation. Immersions. Simulation. Orientation. Immersions. Simulation. Orientation. Immersions. Mass production. Mass production.
So it was actually quite fun to work on this project in the analog glitches, as I got this really old analog video mixer from my granddad, and with a friend we just opened it up on the back and started poking its circuits, and we noticed that some parts of the circuit were creating this type of deformations. Some were related to color, some were related to other different like noises.
Simulation. Orientation. Immersions.
So yeah, always as the song progresses, visually the videos are always more distorted and the pace goes up, the cut becomes increases.
Immersions. Mass production.
And this is another project related to these topics. It's created entirely with different tools. I've used the Unreal Engine, which is a game engine, a game software development. So I used it to create this physical installation, and it's always related to the concept of Anthropocene, so humans affecting the environment. And in fact, it's a combination of a projection screen plus a Kinect, and the closer you get to the projected artwork, the more affected the landscape becomes. And it's not a video, actually. Wait, let me try. So it's not been released yet. It's probably gonna come out soon, I hope, because it was finished in October last year. And this is just a teaser. Yeah, just a short teaser. And to make this, I did a combination of photogrammetry for those scenes where there's with a black background, like stones and trees, and those one interact with the Kinect. I put like the light that is so at the end, the last frame. So you interact with those lights and the sounds. So as you move around, you trigger these lights and sounds, whereas in the other landscapes, in the soil, in the land, you trigger these piles of trash, always 3D scanned from Hackney Wick, actually next to where I live. It's kind of like a fancy dump. And the water, the way it interacts is these 3D models in the water, they stays below the surface, and then as you go around, you trigger them and they float up. So very basic, very straightforward. And yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed.